Thank you very much. Welcome everyone to Environmental Sustainability Committee meeting, Monday, January 27th. Call to order. Any declarations of conflict of interest?
None.
Seeing none, approval of the agenda.
Moved.
Moved by the worship, seconded by Councillor Twill. Approval of minutes from January 10th, 2025.
You know what, I got a question, not sure if it's in the minutes or not, but it's regarding transit. The question I have is, did this committee make a recommendation to council when we discussed the parameters at a closed door meeting? Did a recommendation come from this committee, or did the recommendations from senior management to city council, was that done at the council meeting? I'm looking for a clarification on that. So did the recommendations come from the standing committee to city council, or was it done collectively with all members of city council, where senior management and the Environment Sustainability Committee made a recommendation to city council?
We need to defer the question to CAO.
No, I'm concerned about process. If this is business arising from the minutes, we should approve the minutes and deal with this under business arising.
Okay, and if this was something that arose out of the
It wasn't,
closed
I think
meeting,
he's referring to what, I think wasn't in the minutes, correct? You're trying to find out.
Yeah,
I approve the minutes.
Yes, it's in the minutes.
I move.
the January 10th minutes approved by
I
your
move.
worship.
Second,
Thank you,
Councillor.
second by Councillor Twill.
Okay.
So,
Business arising.
business arising from those minutes.
business
Now-
arising, yeah.
Okay,
So it did come, recommendations did come from this committee regarding the 9 parameters that was discussed at city council. So did a recommendation actually come from this committee? Discussed at this committee?
Do you want me to?
Jessica?
Yeah, please.
Meeting subject matter.
Yeah, so that was a closed session report that we brought forward.
Right,
I don't know how much to speak to that, but the contents of that report were part of the Capital Area Transit Coordinating Committee.
I'm sorry, I'll try it again.
Can we bring this up maybe when we go into a closed session, because we're gonna get into dicey ground here.
No, I'm looking just process, I'm not looking at specifics. I'm trying to get clarity on process, is what I'm looking for.
Yeah, so the reports are written by staff members. They're all reviewed by senior leadership.
Right,
If it's transit related, it's all discussed with the Capital Area Transit Coordinating Committee, and all our recommendations are kind of like a 3 municipal, Cornwall, Stratford, Charlottetown.
so it's not really discussed at this level here.
Our reports come here first and then they go to council.
come here.
Anna wants to
We
speak.
discussed that.
Yeah, it's in the minutes of the December 19 Environment and Sustainability Committee meeting in which this committee went into closed session. And those minutes were approved at the special meeting at which Mike Cassidy was present. Or the minutes of the open session were present. The minutes of the open committee meeting on December 19 were approved at the special committee meeting, which was an open session when Mike Cassidy was present. The minutes of the closed session were from December 19, should be in the closed meeting package for today.
If I can just speak to the minutes, it's business arising from minutes that Councillor Tweel's wanting to speak to process. And in those minutes, it says, contract discussions will begin if council instructs staff to proceed in an upcoming closed session of council and will continue to happen over the coming months between the Cassidys and CATCC. So that speaks to the process in the minutes that have been approved today. And with respect to any conversations about the details, we need to deal with that in closed session.
And that, Sue, maybe you can help me with this, and that more specifically deals with the 9 parameters? So-
Well, I can't speak to what it speaks to. It just, these minutes address the process for how we moved into a closed session on contract negotiations.
Okay, so we'll discuss that at closed door. No, okay, I'm just trying to understand
It is very confusing, Counselor,
Well, I'm-
because we have other parties involved. We have a provider, we have two other municipalities, we have staff that are involved in the files in different ways. So there's a lot of moving parts, and yes, the process is important, that we all agree on what that process looks like as we continue to move forward with
Thank you,
this
I'm just
file.
trying to understand it.
Yep, totally
That's
understand.
it, nothing more, nothing less.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
again, everything that we discussed at the closed meeting regarding the CTACC was not discussed here. It was not.
Well,
That answers your question.
That's where you're going at for, right?
That answers your question. So
Those
when
nine
we went to the closed
I
session,
wanna appeal to our CAO. What I'm trying to do
right?
is I'm trying to get a clear insight as to, correct me if I'm wrong, but normally the process is standing committees are a recommending body to council. That's, ever since I've been here, that's the norm, that's just how it works, so, I guess I don't know if the word is confused. There's many different adjectives, right now, I just wanna understand. Council, and yes, it was closed door discussion, and the doors open, a resolution was passed by council to proceed to the next step. But I guess what
Wasn't the next step, it was just that, we're just for negotiations. It was for negotiations to commence, it wasn't the next step, it was just, that was it. It was just basically-
next step in the process, Chair.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong.
Councilor Twin. Okay, let me just repeat it once more.
Okay.
So what we discussed at this committee meeting didn't end up in that room next door called the chamber.
It did not.
Cause what was presented here, like, I don't remember going over all the details that we covered, specifically what was discussed in the closed session. Okay, so we didn't pass a recommendation to go from here to here. There is a recommendation in the closed session.
Same report.
In today's meeting package, you have minutes from the closed session on December 19, which passed it to council. So, which we shouldn't discuss until we're in closed session to approve the minutes of the closed session from December 19. But it did come to this
But you
committee
can't
first.
pass a resolution in a closed session.
There is provisions in the MGA for discussion
brought out
of,
Yeah, so,
Yep.
The resolution does have to go to open.
yeah,
It has
and that's what was in the,
Yeah.
that was what
Yeah,
was in
that
there.
was-
and that's what.
But the contents of the committee report that went in the council package are the same contents that came to committee first in closed session.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, I just wanna clarify, we did not go into an open session after the closed session and voted on sending this report to council. We did not.
Okay, I
No.
see.
Is it, just check the minutes,
Okay.
it's not there.
I thought you meant in council, sorry. You
No.
mean in committee.
That's the point he's making.
And
I'm not sure it is.
to add to that,
Yes?
and I guess we'll have to wait till we go to the closed door session, but I guess what I'm asking is, everything that was discussed in the closed door session without getting into specifics was agreed upon by this committee before it was forwarded on to council for the discussions and recommendations came from senior management to all members of city council. Am I correct in that?
I'm not sure where you're going there. Not everything, you keep asking about the 9 parameters, I'm
That's right.
assuming, yes. They were not specifically talked about. Can we talk about this when we get into closed
Okay,
session?
fine, but
Move on.
you asked for business arising from the minutes?
Yeah, no,
That's
we'll
why
bring
I
that,
asked.
yeah, and we'll carry that over into the close. So
I'm just trying to
then
understand.
we
Yeah,
get
that's what
says
it
something
understand.
It's
wrong.
closed session.
But if we don't, this committee.
So I know exactly what you mean with that.
No.
I think you made your
It's
point.
recommending
I think
body.
we-
His point is, this committee
It's
didn't
out there.
recommend those 9 things.
Alright, let's move into reports and discussions. Draft 2025-2026 Environment Sustainability Operating Budget, Jessica.
Thank you, Chair. So our environment and sustainability operating budget is here at committee today to get your input and feedback on the draft. And I'll just reiterate, at this point it is draft. All the departments within the city are preparing their operating budgets, and as of the end of last week, we've been instructed to kind of sharpen our pencils a little bit further, so what you have before you is the first draft of our operating budget. So what I'll do is maybe go through it section by section, and then if at the end people have questions, or if you wanna jump in, I'll just keep going until somebody says otherwise.
Would you prefer to have the questions at the end like you present, or do you want?
Sure, let's do that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so for at the top, we have an increase in EV charger revenue because we're projecting more EV charger use. We have an increase of around 83,000 in salaries and benefits, and that's mainly due to the fact that we had 2 of our amazing staff converted from contract to full-time permanent, so that increases benefits, pension, salaries. We put an increase in our professional development and training budget to reflect our increase in full-time staff and the allotment of funds they get for workshops, training, professional development. We projected a reduction of about $3,000 for staff travel, and that's because that's related to mileage, which staff are using less mileage now that we have shared EVs and e-bikes, and decrease of personal vehicle use. I suggest a decrease of $17.89 in travel for committee, only because over the last few years, that money has been unspent, so rather than allocating around 68, move that to closer to 5,000. Meals and meeting expenses up by 2% CPI. Our projects, so special projects kind of captures a variety of our projects, whether it's energy related or AT and forestry. So projected about a $2,800 increase there, relating to our forestry projects, EV and bike maintenance. With the loss of our switch program, we're hoping to increase, Councillor Tweel brought forward a resolution to make sure there were residential energy efficiency programs in the absence of switch, so that would allow us to expand our residential energy programs. Our climate action plan is ongoing, so that will keep the $35,000 allotment. You'll see some changes in the Fiona restoration work. You'll see that Simon's done amazing work bringing in external funds. So we anticipate going from 135,000 to 237,000, but that's offset by 160,000 in funding. We hope to continue the home flood rebate program, and anticipate to spend about $100,000 on that with 50,000 in partner funding. The 155,000 is an increase in our budget. It's never been there before. It's budget that was in Public Works budget. But we manage the contractors and review all the invoices, so it doesn't make sense to have that budget in Public Works because they don't use those funds. So that is a transfer from Public Works to Environment and Sustainability. Education and communication, a slight increase there to reflect our climate action plan work. Katrina's gonna be launching our climate action plan soon, and we're gonna use a online reporting platform for that. And we have some increases in our membership costs and workshops to deliver. Staff uniforms and miscellaneous items, about $800 increase there, based on number of staff and CPI. EV charger expenses, that's basically our Maritime Electric bills to run them. We're expecting more use, which means more electricity use, but also more revenue. No increase in computer and IT, office needs. Micro grants will stay the same at a $15,000 allotment. And then in partner funding, we expect around 327,000, and That's between cosmetic pesticide fees, business tree challenge, business payments, climate challenge fund, FCM, Trans Canada Trail, TD, Tree Canada are to be confirmed. And then FCM through their natural asset management work and the provincial AT fund. If you want, I could stop there before I get into transit, or would you like me to continue?
Any questions on what's been
Yeah,
presented?
microgrants. Are all microgrants administered through this department?
Just the specific ones for environment and sustainability.
Okay, so overall microgrants, who administers all of those grants?
Through the chair, I believe finance manages citywide grants. Maybe
Which
economic
includes-
development
which-
does their own as well.
Which includes like all of the micro grants? No?
I don't think they term them micro grants. Ours are specifically micro grants. There's other city community grants. Is that maybe what you're thinking of?
I thought at one time,
The province also has micro grants.
sorry?
The province also has micro grants.
I guess maybe I thought they were administered through this committee, this department, but I guess they're not.
Just the 15,000.
Just the one line item. That's done through finance?
The larger cities community grants.
Yeah, but I was thinking more of, not so much grants, but I thought there were like, it was a designation, that there were micro grants. No?
I'm only aware of our department's micro grants.
Is there a criteria, Sue, do you know, for, I guess they're not called micro grants, I don't know why. I just thought that recent years, they were referred to as, some of them are referred to as micro grants.
Through you, Mr. Chair. There's a whole section in our budget, Counselor, that is grants. There's a grants section in
Yeah.
our overall operational budget. And those could be grants to the guild, to the
Yeah.
Confed Center. None of those are called micro grants.
No, I know, I'm looking at a specific, heading, or referred to as micro grants.
You know, that the
People
only
from the-
micro grants, Counselor, are in the environment sustainability.
Cause people
Initiatives.
people have in the past were able to apply for these micro grants and they were given the opportunity to access, you know, could be 10,000, could be 5,000, maybe 15,000. But this year, you're only recommending one.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so our department has only ever delivered the $15,000 micro grants. There is a page on the city's website that speaks to the broader city grants that we
Okay,
give.
no, thank you. I want to go back to the education communication. So it says online climate action plan, reporting platforms, more workshops, more events, increased memberships. When it comes to the climate action plan, are we still going with the same plan that's been outlined, say, over the last 2 or 3 years, working towards that particular goal?
Yeah, I can speak to it, but maybe Katrina would be best to speak to
Sure.
it.
Sure, Mr. Chair. So we're in the final stages of creating a new climate action plan that we've been working on for about a year and a half.
Yep.
So I'm not exactly sure when that will come in front of committee, but it will be soon. We're just about done. And then based on that plan, we'll create a new reporting platform to better engage with the community on how we track and report on this.
So with all the workshops and further participation from, you know, from the constituents in the city, do you see the plan changing in any which way, shape, or form, or?
Well, so this new plan that's been created
Yeah.
has been heavily influenced by many different engagement opportunities that we've done with the community. So this
Yeah.
the new iteration of our, well, it's the first time we'll have a climate action plan, but it's building upon our community energy plan and our integrated community sustainability plan.
Yeah.
It's been completely informed by public opinion. And so it'll have about a 5-year lifespan, but part of the purpose of having that reporting platform, as well as many workshops and engagement opportunities as we implement that plan, will be so that it can be influenced by public opinion as we move forward. So it'll be it will be one document, but it will be living as well in the way that we implement it, based on how public.
Can there be amendments made to the plan?
Yeah, I mean, the plan's not finished yet, but I mean, as we go to implement it, it will be a living, breathing document.
Okay, thank you.
Does that plan come to council or to come to the committee before?
I believe that will be the process, yeah.
Carry on, Jessica?
The next section of our budget is around transit. And that will see a slight increase of 88,000 overall, so from 2.32 million to 2.41 million. Basically, this is status quo. You'll see in new initiatives some recommendations for expansion, but this speaks to our existing service. So there are increased costs based on CPI, Wi-Fi. We've moved things around a little bit in the budget, but overall, the changes are, there's increases to snow removal, as we brought to council, that was not budgeted for sufficiently in the past. So there's a slight increase to allow for further snow removal at bus stops. Also, we talked about HST on fares, so we need to account for more money for HST on fares. And we have a slight reduction in fuel costs that we're seeing. At one point, fuel costs went really high and we had to budget a lot. Now we're seeing fuel costs come down a little bit, so there was a slight reduction in fuel costs. But basically, this is for Wi-Fi and GPS on units, membership costs for us to be part of the Canadian Urban Transit Association. Pat and the Elephant has a $66,000 grant. The big bulk of it is our transit service operations, which is our payments to Trias for the delivery of service. Shelter maintenance, which is the funds that are to pay Trias for maintaining our bus shelters. So graffiti, broken glass, cleaning up garbage, cleaning out snow from inside the shelter, and a little bit outside of that. Provincial funding, so you'll see no change in commitments from the province, so the same 376,000 there. And then because we deliver transit with Cornwall and Stratford, we have contributions from them represented as well.
So for shelter maintenance and snow removal around the bus shelters and inside, we give that money to T3 are responsible for doing that maintenance?
So Trias is T3 is just the brand of
True,
the
yeah,
service,
sorry.
but we provide Trias with payments for bus shelter maintenance, yes.
Okay, let me just go back to okay, I'll start here. So I have for last year, 24-25, 2.3, 2,324,000. So what have we spent to this point? Like, where are we at? Where's the forecast?
I can,
Like, are you above, are you below? 2.3? Like, by the end of the year, will you be at 2.3 or will you be 2.2, 2 million?
yeah, I don't know off the top of my head what that
Could we
forecast is.
get those figures?
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Before? And so it's 22,000 for the cleaning the shelters, right? Snow removal for the snow shelter, clearing snow around the shelters. That's the resolution that we passed, remember that
25,000,
transfer? So what are you budgeting for this year? Say-
25,000.
So we're getting into that. And they're already doing the inside, right? And we're paying 77,000.
Can our public works staff do that?
Yeah. They have 13 shelters in Stratford, 5 shelters in Cornwall, and there's a fee for each of them.
Yeah, I think there's work that staff can do on our part to, we did meet with Public Works and asked if they had capacity to do snow removal at the shelters, which they didn't. I think it was brought up at a past council meeting where there was concern with water sewer doing hydrants, Public Works doing sidewalks, us doing shelters, that we probably could meet together internally and maybe find some efficiencies there. But definitely there is a challenge with inaccessibility at our bus stops due to mounds of snow not being properly cleared. And the Cassidys are extremely helpful and are doing what they can, but they don't have the equipment or the mandate to remove snow between the sidewalks and the buses, so people don't have a clear path to access the bus. So the $25,000 represents budget for that need. If we decide somehow we have the capacity internally to do that, that's great. I was told we do not have that capacity right now.
Okay, so on the partner funding going to last year's budget, 23-24 we had 180. 23-24 it was 607. And last year was, or this year, 556,000. And you got a 376? Why the reduction? Was that,
It's not a reduction, it's just the way it's represented on there's two lines for partner funding.
yeah, there's one there, says funding, provincial funding,
Yeah.
and the other, where is that?
So the 376 stays the same.
Yeah.
And the 180 stays the same. But this year we've added in 14,250 from Stratford and Cornwall.
They never gave that before?
Well, it's in relation to the HST on fares because we're paying, the city of Charlottetown's receiving a bill for HST on fares. And that represents their reimbursement of their portion.
So your transit coordinators, and so have we done a best practice across the country on HST? Let's say Toronto, let's say Barrie, Ontario. Are they getting the HST back? I think HST is Ontario, right? They have 9% plus the 14%, or maybe it's 8% provincial, but it's a harmonized tax. Are the transits getting money back from the province?
Through you, Chair. So the for a transit agency that operates their own transit system, which is about 85% of systems across the country.
I know
they don't
that,
need to pay
but-
HST, so that would be Toronto. For those who have a privately contracted operator, we do pay HST. We get the regular 5% of that back.
That's the federal portion.
Yeah, but we pay
Provincial.
it's a net debit against our municipal accounts to pay the remainder of that. And we would pay the HST on total compensation to our operator, whether that total compensation is direct payments per hour or whether that's their retaining of the fares. And so the HST on fares is unique only to us and Corner Brook because we're the only two municipalities where the operator
So in
retains fares.
Ontario, when Toronto Transit gather all their bills for electrical because they have rails, they have GO trains, they have diesel buses. Do they submit those bills to the province to get the HST back? This is
yeah.
Transit Toronto. I'm not,
Yeah.
I know we're a triple P, there's,
Yeah.
or Halifax. Have you looked into Halifax?
I can't speak to other
But
municipalities.
that's what we have to do, guys. We have to find out if other municipalities are getting the ITC, input tax credit. We don't know that.
So the 10-year transit plan did, through you, Mr. Chair, the
Right.
transit plan did a bunch of, you were speaking earlier to fares, so Anna was responding about fares.
Well, I don't think this provincial funding is about fares. It's funding that went from 180 and up, right?
So what we were speaking to was just the HST on fares.
Okay, but we are also paying the HST and the fuel, correct? Are we not? Is he billing us the HST for the fuel?
No, so we pay HST once on the service that is provided by Trias Transit.
Right.
And if we were to pay directly for fuel, we would be paying the HST on fuel as well. CRA did provide advice to the municipality on input tax credits and whether we were eligible back in 2018. So it's not something that we have an open discussion with the province about the future of provincial transit funding, but for now, we have the $180,000 grant and the additional $475,000 grant.
I'm just trying to, again, let's leave fares aside because as you said, it's a triple P, so that puts us in a different category compared to Halifax, Fredericton, Moncton. But on input tax credits, when we get the bill from T3, Trias, right? His cost would include fuel. And so Can't we break, like, he has to be paying the HST on that, and if he's paying the HST on that, he's getting it back, because it would be an input tax credit. So are we getting any bounce back from that? Or, again, does Halifax, do they get the input tax credit when they submit their fuel bills? That's, like, if we don't know that,
I can look into that and get back to you.
we can't be going to the province and saying, well, give us the HST back on the fares, give us the HST back on the fuel, or anything that has HST when it comes to running the transit. We should know that, because then we make comparative analysis.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, our communication with the province was specifically about HST on fares.
Okay, so if I go back just to your budget as 1.6 million, it's up from 1.4. Do we have the forecast for the operational on your salaries, everything that's in there in your budget, in your main budget?
Can you repeat that again, sorry? In
Okay,
the
so
main
it's up to,
budget?
it's going up to 1.6 million. Okay, your total expenses for your budget on page 7, right there,
Operating budget.
operating budget.
Okay, yes.
Where's the forecast for the 1.3 that we budgeted for last year? We don't have the forecast, like the forecast is,
The first
The
column.
year-to-date, your worship, is that what
Year-to-date.
you're looking for?
That's what I'm saying.
Richard's bringing that up now, if you want to just say what it is, Richard.
what are we at year to date, Richard, on the 1.3 or 1.4?
1.4.
Are we under, over,
1.4 for which again?
24, 25.
operational?
Our operational
Which would
budget
be
for
on
environment and sustainability, the budget was
Page 33 of the
1.4,
document.
and he wants a year-to-date in the rec department.
Yeah, the forecast for 2024, 2025 is 1.383 million for the total.
So under 10,000.
Yes, exactly, 10,109
Okay.
less is the current forecast.
Yeah, okay, so that's good.
Good
Now-
budgeting,
What's that?
good budgeting.
Forecasting. So again, you're up by 1.4 to 1.6, you're up by 200,000. I don't think it's too much in terms of differences, but again, there are other budgets that'll be coming forth.
Yeah, and if you look at it all together, the whole environment and sustainability, it's a reduction of, as of now, 175,000. But, like I mentioned, we're hoping to bring that down even more. And then there's new initiatives, which I didn't speak to yet as well.
No, they're coming up. But that would be in your 1.6, right, that new initiatives? Or is that
New
above and beyond?
initiatives are not part of the budget we just discussed. They would be
Okay.
considered separately.
Okay, yeah, they are. Good, strong, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Continue.
Discussion, is there anything else?
Yes, so there is Switch, so as we know, Switch is wrapping up. And we still have loan payment and management to do on our program, so significant reduction in spending, but we still need about $60,000 in admin and bank fees. Which I will say can be recouped through interest made off of the loan money that comes in when people make payments. So Nick and I are meeting with finance to discuss that further. The next sheets starting on page 10 are kind of just summarize a bit more what we just discussed. So I won't go through those because it is just a repeat, just laid out in a different way. And then as far as new initiatives, the first one on page 12, I want to point out the all caps part of the description of the new initiative. So those 2 positions are funded, seasonal positions through FCM. But because they're positions that the city currently doesn't have on salary, we need council approval to hire them. So that would be at no cost to the city, but a value of $37,200. The second new initiative would be related to the same type of, the second ranked as far as department priorities, so I'll just say these are labeled in, I'm sure you're familiar with these, but in case not, these are put as far as department priorities. So the FCM funded one I put as priority number 1 for obvious reasons, it's fully funded. Seems like a bit of a no-brainer. So number 2, and committee can provide their input on reordering these if they see fit. What we have as number 2 is public transit service expansion at a cost of $350,600. And this is based on input we get from mayor and council, increasing service to East Royalty, improving service around the QEH and the Mount, and increasing weekend services that we have on our core routes. And that is, like I said, ranked as the second new initiative. Anna can speak more to that if people have questions.
Could I ask a question, Mr. Chair, on when we're mapping out, through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, when we're mapping out possible expansion, is this the first time that we've come through council at budget time to expand routes, or has it always been just driven through our provider?
Every year, there is a budget for expansion.
Okay.
And then staff will discuss with the operator where we feel and come to an agreement on where those expanded hours will be applied.
Okay.
I think that this may be the first year where coming into budget season, we are saying what we would spend that on in advance of the budget expansion. Previous years have requested a budget expansion of $100,000 per year. And in accordance with the growth recommended in the 10-year plan, we've sort of planned out where we think, within the limitations of our fleet, we've planned out where we think that route expansion could happen next year. So of the transit expansion, about 50% is service to East Royalty on weekdays. They currently only have 1.25 service hours per day, one run in the morning and in the afternoon. And about half of it is for service on weekends. So as Mike Cassidy said when he was here for the presentation session, he said we could make a statement this year by moving to 7-day-a-week service on all of our core routes. So this would add Route 2, 3, and 23 to our current Sunday offering, which is currently only Route 1, as well as improving service to the QEH on Saturdays.
And just to add through the chair, so this is all communication Anna's had with our operator before it makes its way here
So,
to make sure that they're on board.
So, Mr. Chair, correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Twill, I think we looked at back in 2019, 2020, just before COVID. We went outside the budget process and asked for $125,000 to provide service out to East Royalty. We tried it for 6 months. It didn't work because I don't know if we had a lot of the advertising tools there to make it work. So by just setting it up, we have to make sure people know the service is there. And that'll be part of this $350,000 effort initiative. So, okay, and then are we going into negotiations with T3? Or like, is this just to put a park on the side and as we move through the negotiations, or is it, we're gonna put this on the table as part of negotiations?
This service expansion would be under the current contract. So the current contract, we anticipate that we wouldn't be shifting to a new contract until at least September of this year, or we might leave it until the new financial year of the following year. So this is an operational budget just for the next financial year and assumes an increase in hours with a continuation of the current contract in its current form. Because even if we renegotiate terms of the contract, it will take a number of months to finalize that and then to sign, and we will likely have a later effective date to allow time for transition of administration before a new contract is effective. So this recommendation is entirely within the current transit contract and the same compensation model.
I don't know if I agree with it, because if we've had this discussion, a full discussion, I think we're going back into discussion, the closed session about negotiations, so why put something there, like, let's just, if we have to speed up the negotiations to make sure we get programs in place, that would be part of the negotiations, would it not?
Your worship, I think we might be talking about two separate items. The service expansion money would be set out with the understanding that we would continue under the existing agreement to expand services as demand requires. So it's business as usual, the money's higher than it was before because demand is so much higher. But as far as entering into negotiations for any changes on the existing agreement, Anna's point is that there's another path forward for that that's gonna run parallel to continuing to provide existing and improved services with everything that we've got in the agreement now, with no changes required. So they're kind of two separate paths that we're on. Any changes to the existing agreement at our contract negotiation conversations would run a parallel course so that services aren't interrupted and new services aren't continuing to be offered to our citizens.
It's, Mr. Chair, like, again, this is only one department, one part of the department. But as you add more money onto the operational side of the equation, you have to find places where you're gonna get the money to pay for it. This is a significant amount for one budget area, so again, we're going down the road of negotiating with our provider. Let's negotiate. And part of that negotiation is to get a expanded service or whatever we end up doing, but
And it could very well be that, your worship, at the end of the day, I guess the point is if we can, if it's listed as a new initiative, because there's recognition for the fact that this isn't status quo budgeting.
Yeah.
So if at the end of the day, the council doesn't see fit to have that money set aside for that specific service expansion, then that's the state of the union, if you will. But it doesn't preclude the negotiation team from going to the table and saying, you know, we can't do this maybe unless we do have a different looking agreement that allows us to expand services with our existing budget. That's part of that conversation.
well, not to get into the details of
Yeah.
what could be negotiated.
Yeah.
You know, I think some of these issues could be part of any discussion in the
Absolutely.
future.
Absolutely.
Anyways, I just have reservations about it because there's so much money in the pot and it has to be shared equitably amongst all the
Understood.
departments. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add to that, my opinion is the two can happen separately, the continuing of service and possible improvement of service and contract negotiations. And a lot of these recommendations came from your fellow councillors on the council floor, so I'm sure there'll be
Yeah.
lots of good discussion about this new initiative.
Just find the money.
Yeah. And then the third one is in relation to urban forestry work, so similar to the FCM funded positions, these would be city funded seasonal staff people. As we plant more trees, as we have more storms, as we have more invasive species, we need some more summer staff to help us do maintenance and planting and mulching, watering. So this would be 2 field staff to support our natural areas work. And the final one is the Operation Relief Program that we've delivered to support homeowners with getting large tree stock on their private property to help grow our tree canopy with us. This is not confirmed whether we have the matching funds yet or not, but if we were successful in receiving some financial support for that program, we would propose 2 seasonal staff to deliver that program. And that's the final new initiative.
Would that be an overlap of seasonal staff between number 3 and number 4, or would it be 4 seasonal staff?
4. 2 funded, 2 city.
And Simon, it says up there to assist in reaching the iddies.
Sorry.
Cities. Typo. You can blame me.
There's a few
The
typos.
iddies. Anyways, it's a great program.
It has certainly, for you, Mr. Chair, it certainly has been a great programme. Tree Canada provides this programme as a sort of immediate response to a natural disaster, so I'm not sure whether we'll be able to get it for a third year, but obviously we have a great relationship with Tree Canada and they fund a number of programmes that we benefit from, so I hope to do that. But the FCM negotiations and the Trans-Canada Trails negotiations have been, the contracts haven't been signed yet, but they've indicated that they will be forthcoming with the cash money.
Thank you.
So Simon, is the aim and objective to create a forestry department within the city of Charlottetown, for example? And that department would be administered by this department here, so that you actually have people on the ground. I think you might have said at previous meetings where we don't have people that actually are on the ground. You have to rely, it's a hit and miss, say with Public Works, or you're contracting out with people to come in and provide that particular service. So are you looking to have personnel with the proper credentials and qualifications to be able to do that work, and to work 365 days of the year, to be able to provide that, that required work? When it comes to forestry, tree planting, it could be a variety of things. Whether it be the wooded area, Victoria Park, or out in East Royalty, West Royalty. Is that the aim and objective here?
I would, for you, Mr. Chair, I would say we have an urban forestry department. We're nestled into the environment sustainability team. And that department currently, that team is made up of myself and two other full-time members of staff, so a forest technician and a technician assistant. However, we need support in the seasonal time to kind of do the work. So obviously, Fiona in particular created a significant increase in the amount of work needed to be done, and really highlighted the fact that we needed to increase our attention to some of the stewardship activities involved in managing natural areas and urban forests. So we're just trying to meet demand at the moment. We don't have enough seasonal staff to do that currently. Plus, we have all these additional projects as well. So we've been very successful in being able to get funding last year and the year before, and this year coming, we look like we're going to get significant additional funding for trees, but we have to often match that funding as well. And so we may be able to get $30,000 for trees, but I need humans to plant those trees.
So what are you gonna use in terms of vehicles? What about vehicles? You're gonna have access to vehicles?
Yep, so through the FCM funding, for you, Mr. Chair, we have a split for renting a truck, so we rent a truck during the summer. In addition, we have a small truck that is currently assigned to the department year round. So between those two, we get by for most of it. Occasionally, we'll need to rent a truck for a day or two to do some extra things, but on the whole, we make do with rentals. To supplement the work, sorry.
Will we get a full report at the conclusion of the season as to how it worked out?
Absolutely, yeah. We did that last 2 months ago for this past year, and we'll be repeating it. I mean, we're really excited about this year because the FCM funding and the Trans-Canada Trails fundings is quite significant amounts of money. So, and that money is not just limited to buying trees; it's the whole package for restoration work. So we're we're looking forward to a good year.
And does that help people on private properties as well?
No, that's the Tree
Staying
Canada.
away from that.
We haven't had any funding. We don't currently have any funding to do that. We have had funding the last 2 years from Tree Canada, as I say, but we're not sure if we'll be able to get it for a third year.
I'd love to be able to introduce a program that helps property owners.
Yeah.
With tree planting. I know there's challenges with going on private property, but if you go back in time, I mean, that was a great asset to the city, where property owners were able to take advantage of, trees that were provided by the city, planted on their property, and the longevity of those trees was, it was great for individual homeowners.
Yep. Over the course of the last 2 years.
To be able to emulate that form of practice.
Yeah, over the course of the last 2 years, we've planted 350 trees on private residents' properties as a result of the Tree Canada funding. The cost of continuing that program obviously would be the staff mentioned in the new initiative form, and if we were to go alone, we would need an additional somewhere around the $50,000-$60,000 budget as well if we were to go alone without funding, and we haven't put that in the budget this year because we're trying to be. We'd love to plant trees everywhere, but we have to constrain ourselves somewhat.
Just one other point, Mr. Chair, I know I brought this up previously.
Is this
As-
regarding the budget? I'm running out of time, I have to
Yeah,
leave
it
here at
is,
$1:15.
it does concern the budget. I brought it up previously, and that's tree stumps, removal of tree stumps, you know, as a result of Fiona. You know, some of these tree stumps are massive, and it's just impossible for the homeowners to be able to remove some of those tree stumps. I
That's
mean,
not in the budget here, Councillor Twill.
yeah, well, I know, but I'm
Stump.
asking, can that be addressed with what you're doing?
Not right now. We did, obviously, we offered the private tree stump removal program previously with a significant budget, and it was significantly underspent during that time. There wasn't great uptake from the public. We do not have any money assigned for private stump removal. We have money set aside for our own stump removal, and we have a significant number of stumps remaining from Fiona. Hundreds, so it's a big job for us to do our own.
Okay, let's move on. I do have to leave at 1:15 for another commitment. So either Councillor Twill can take over at 1:15 as chair,
We don't
or
have
we'll have to
quorum. I don't think
adjourn.
We don't have quorum,
So we'll have to, okay, so let's
we have to postpone or.
Just reschedule.
Yeah.
manager, and if we're gonna reschedule, we may move our meetings till late afternoon. Then we can have prolonged discussions. We're gonna jump to 6C, public transit electrification project. There was a request for this, cause it might be a little.
Can we just get 6B, just a quick overview? Is that possible? Just a quick overview. I just wanna, just quick, I've been waiting for this for some time.
Very quickly, yes.
Thank
So,
you, Mr. Chair.
so without repeating everything that's in the written report, the written report provides a summary of what was completed in 2024 on active transportation across the 3 teams within community services. So it includes many kilometres of new sidewalk and nearly 1 kilometre of multi-use path under Public Works, as well as work on pathways in 3 parks from Parks and Recreation. We installed 9 bike racks in our team. That's a fairly modest contribution after the previous year had a very large project with the AT lane around the bypass perimeter highway. And then we also outline what administrative and planning and public engagement work was done by each of the 3 teams. And so I'm really glad to say that Parks and Rec and Public Works and our own team are all now regularly talking with each other. I think we're really beginning to break down silos in a good way. There always has been that collaboration, but now we're beginning on the creation of this 10-year active transportation strategy, and all 3 teams within the department are coming together every 2 weeks to say, well, this is what we're doing. We're making sure that all of the information is going into maps that our consultant is assessing to say this is the state of the current network and the current network with plans added to it. And so this is where we'll need to focus our investment in the future to fill in the gaps in the network. So we just sent out invitations last week actually to the Technical Advisory Committee and Public Advisory Committee on our 10-year active transportation plan. So the Technical Advisory Committee includes people from multiple departments within the city who are involved, including our department, as well as Planning and Heritage, Emergency Services, Fire, as well as provincial staff, so those who specialise in AT, both for commuters and recreation from the province. And our Public Advisory Committee includes stakeholders from the cycling community who you would expect, as well as the disability and accessibility community. So we've got the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, who are big advocates for accessible sidewalks, resource abilities, bike-friendly communities, McQueen's, Rising Tide, Cycling PEI, all of those types of groups, as well as youth and seniors organizations have been invited to sit on that committee, and they'll have 3 workshop meetings over the next couple of months with our consultant as input to the plan. So overall, it's feeling like we're making good progress on AT. Took a little while to get that plan started, and we've also kicked off the Capital Region Active Transportation Working Group with Stratford and Cornwall and the province, and have agreed that that group will continue to meet quarterly to make sure that we're coordinating work across and not duplicating.
No, thank you, Anna. No, good report. Lots of detail. Only one thing that I noticed, for active transportation, you've included 2 kilometers of sidewalks at the cities. Under the Highway Traffic Act, we can't tell cyclists to use the sidewalks for active transportation for cycling.
That is correct, yes. There's active transportation comprises both walking and cycling. Generally,
Yeah,
and rollerblading, wheelchairs, e-scooters, it's human powered or electrically
Baby
assisted.
carriages, yeah.
And generally, we have a fairly high walkability score for the downtown and adjacent neighbourhoods, and this 5-year sidewalk plan is extending that into more neighbourhoods and sort of connecting that. But our cycling network connectivity is currently lacking, or where we have painted cycling lanes, for example, all of the orange lines, that's our cycling infrastructure map versus our pedestrian infrastructure map. The orange lines in the cycling infrastructure map are painted lines on the side of roads, which are generally, that would be acceptable on low traffic streets, but these tend to be painted on very high traffic streets where it's
North
quite
River Road.
dangerous. Yeah, North River Road, St. Peter's Road, and so our consultant is doing what's called a traffic stress analysis, which is to say that on a road that is sufficiently busy with like a certain threshold of number of cars per day and speed, that it is too stressful that a cyclist would need to have a separated bike lane if there were to be cycling on that road. And I think that also tracks with anecdotes that we hear about where cycling accidents happen. We've never had that data systemically tracked, but we do know that there have been some really bad cycling accidents on those painted lines.
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Just on page 18, it says the staff updated council on the formation of a capital regional active transportation working group. So that's the one with Dawson, Logan Dawson, correct? He's gonna
Yes.
be part of that? I've always mentioned, or I've said this to our manager a number of times. It'd be great if we could get a representative, a resident representative from each community, Stratford, Cornwall, and Charlottetown, to meet quarterly with this group, just to get their input, because there's a lot of people out there that want to be part of any plans going forward. And again, this is an afterthought, but we went out for a 10-year active transportation plan. It's too bad that we didn't invite Stratford and Cornwall, or maybe you did and they didn't want to come in, because it'd be great to get that plan working together for the whole region. Like, we got the connectors already, going out to Cornwall, going across the Hillsborough Bridge. Now we just want to make sure that there's more connections in each of those capital region communities, so that we can collectively keep people on bikes and get more people on bikes. And as for the laneways that we have, and this goes back to our CAO's time as manager of Parks and Recreation, they started putting those bike lanes down for the streets that we have here in Charlottetown. You know what, we shouldn't have some bike lanes on some of the streets. North River Road is one of them, because by the end of it runs out of runway at the end of North River Road when it comes up to the Queen's Arms intersection, and it's dangerous. Like, I would prefer to direct cyclists to go right around the avenue and do it that way, or use that route, but I think we just have to revisit some of those lanes we have in place now. And we need our police enforcing cars that park in these cycling lanes? Lots of times cars are parked stacked, like people should be fined for doing that because that is a safe space for cycling. And you're a cyclist, so
Victoria Park is another bad area there.
but it's some of the things, hopefully some of these points will be addressed under the transportation plan. But I'd really like to push this citizen participation from each of the capital region communities. Get involved in this capital area.
Why don't you have someone from this committee sit on that?
Well, you do have our,
No, I'm talking,
Elected-
I'm talking at the elected level. Gives you a different perspective.
it does, it will.
Yeah, so I would suggest, if you're gonna have someone from this, at the elected level. I do wanna come back to about some of these so-called cycling lanes, I agree. They don't meet the national standards, never did. Whether it be North River Road, I look at University Avenue, North River Road, Grafton Street, Spencer Drive, Eastern Gateway. I've been hammering away about Mount Edward Road. It's a disaster. On the west side of Mount Edward Road, from the bypass all the ways in. I think you'll attest that too, Chair. But it's not safe. It's just simply not safe. And we've got to make inroads there. And to suggest or to try to illustrate that some of these
To make it a cycling city.
entranceways into the city, like Mount Edward Road, I'll come back to that again. I mean, it's dangerous. That's been talked about. Geez, I remember when Councillor Danny Redmond was here, we hammered that home, that it does not meet the national standards. And of course, that's infrastructure work. Everything from infrastructure in the ground, it's like these are big ticket items.
Yeah.
These are big ticket items.
Councillor Twill, I'd like to park that because I'd like to bring that up under business arising from our next minutes, because I think we need a more discussion on that. Like, you got that East Ridge sidewalk on Mount Edward Road. There's a sidewalk there,
No,
Like,
that's
no,
on
I know,
that's on
I
the
know.
east side,
I
but
know.
on the west side,
but you don't need both sides, you just
yes, you
need
do.
one
No, I
pathway.
disagree with you because we
That's
got
why this
residents.
was into a longer
I know.
conversation.
Yeah,
I
it's
know,
much
but
more-
hold it.
we'll
We got
no, let's
residents
put that
living-
on another thing.
Yeah.
We're running out of time here, Councillor
Okay.
Twill,
I
that's
just-
another topic
Yeah, I
for
know,
the
I
next
know.
meeting.
Yeah, just before we leave, we have residents living on the west side, right?
Yes.
That have been asking for a pathway or sidewalk for a number of years, and it's dangerous, and they can't get across the street.
If I may, I'll just say, I love the passion that you all are
Yes.
showing for this issue. And there will be public, in addition to the two technical and public stakeholder consultation groups, there will be as well an open public consultation, and we will be making sure that council is fully aware of when those opportunities are. And there's going to be a map published where people can put pins on it to identify hotspots. We're gonna collect all of that. And it's also very strongly informed by the work that Bike Friendly Communities did just 2 years ago. So really looking forward to synthesizing all of that. I think we're gonna come up with some really strong recommendations for where to go forward.
Yeah, you can throw Allen Street in as well.
Thank you, sir.
Let's move on to 6C, Public Transit Electrification Project. Jessica and Anna, I'm not sure what's.
Okay, I can start and Anna can jump in. This report relates to the transit electrification project, so the build of the depot and the purchasing of full-size battery electric buses. And since reports went to council that outlined plans to build the depot and purchase the full-size electric buses, we gained more information about long-term funding from federal government that is significantly less than what we're getting now. And so we want to bring a report forward to paint a clear picture to council of kind of like the 5-year impacts of capital and operating. So Anna did a lot of work to dive into this 5-year synopsis, capital operating, and then also greenhouse gas carbon reductions based on both scenarios. So I'm just gonna kind of condense the report into the two areas. So one being proceed with the depot and the full-sized electric buses as planned. So over the next 5 years, that would look like about 32.8 million in city capital money, 55.2 before our funding. 37.8 million in operating, and reduction of about 2,600 tons of carbon per year, and ridership of close to 3 million trips per year, compared to 1.5 million in 2024. If we were to adjust our ISIP agreement, and that would, all these plans would be conditional on ISIP funding approval to change our scope. If we take that money and focus on investing in increasing our fleet size and getting more full-size diesel buses, and starting our pathway to electrification by purchasing our mini buses as electric, because we do have full-size buses and mini buses in our fleet, and not build the depot, that scenario would calculate about, over 5 years, about 8.7 million in capital costs after funding, and 30.1 million in operating costs. And that would have a savings of about 2,260 tons of carbon, and about 3.8 million trips per year on the buses. So as you can see from that, you're getting much higher ridership because you're investing in fleet and service, which has environmental benefits because you're getting more people out of their cars, so you're seeing less carbon emissions by personal vehicles and more people on buses. There is a kind of like a flow chart there to kind of walk you through what would happen if ISIP were to approve our scope changes. So we're presenting this to council with basically a couple of paths forward, business as usual as was planned, or do the scope change. You can see that we'll get similar greenhouse gas carbon emission impacts and increased ridership with a more affordable, more economical option. So the recommendation of council is to direct staff to proceed with scope changes to ISIP funding agreements to move from the transit depot construction and full-size electric bus purchases to diesel fleet expansion, electric minibus purchase, and installation of charging station. Further, that council directs staff to pursue capital plans that align with the outcomes of ISIP project change request approvals. So there's a little bit more information within the report, but I think that summarizes the purpose of the report.
Jeff?
Go ahead.
So, Jessica, so we're doing a transformation from monies that we had earmarked for the depot for electric buses to back to diesel, right? And that's part of the transition. That will help with the new routes, the current routes, and any other challenges that we'd like to meet, say for the next 2 years, 3 years? What are you looking at in terms of forecast?
You wanna answer that or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can take that. So we're looking over the next 5 years.
5, okay.
Yeah. And we, under the electric scenario, we would have got from our current 20 buses, 20 vehicles, including minibuses, to 32 minibuses in 32 vehicles, full-size and minibuses in 5 years. And under the scenario where we don't pursue electrification, we would have an additional 5 buses, so to 37, which would be an accelerated implementation of expanding service hours. So that starts getting us to 15-minute frequency on routes outside of Route 1 in addition to that high frequency that we have on University Avenue. We'd also be seeing that on North River Road and St. Peter's Road, for example.
Do we have storage for a spot for all these buses? If we get up to 37?
Yes, the current transit facility accommodates up to 55, 60 buses in the yard.
Mr. Chair. I've been disappointed with this whole process since the last meeting when Richard gave his report on fiscal due diligence. We've been working on this for 4 or 5 years since I started. We got a climate action plan that addresses electric buses, electrification. Now, it may not be fully in there, but it does make reference to it. So probably have to change the climate action plan. But then, you know, we passed a resolution in November to purchase 4 buses, electric buses. Then we pass a resolution in December. All, these are this is a legislative process. And then to be told, okay, only from the question that was asked, did you order the buses? No, didn't order the buses. Well, you had a direction from the legislative process that was adhered to in the other room that we voted on, 10-0. So now we're coming back, and again, I know where Jessica's coming from
Which
because,
process you talking about, Phil?
well, when you pass a resolution,
You talking November or December?
we had 2, we passed one in
I didn't
November.
support the one in December,
What?
not for the depot.
No, that was in December, but in
That's right.
November, it was 10-0 to purchase the buses. And again, our manager was fulfilling her duties as, look, this is the path we're going on. And then we had another path that was the fiscal due diligence. Well, that should have been part of every piece of this process, and it wasn't. And now we have to come back and most likely rescind both those resolutions. And you, Mr. Chair, said at the December 10th meeting, someone asked about the $10 million coming from the ISIP, and you said, if we don't take it now for this, we won't get it. Because that's the information you were given, correct?
Right.
So now we're saying, oh no, we can change it. I have difficulty with any recommendation going up to council. I'm not supportive of it. I'm focused on what we set out to do 4 or 5 years ago, and that was to electrify our fleet. We purchased the property out there at 5 and 7 Longworth Avenue, I think, for about $3 million, right? And now we got a piece of property that's too small.
Yeah.
And I said that at the time, I said, there are other properties that we should be looking at. So, again, I'm disappointed that we've gone this far and now we're going back much further. And again, your work was being excellently carried out. It was the fiscal due diligence that we didn't take into consideration. Because anytime you borrow money or you spend money, there's a debt process. That's business 101. There's a debt, someone has to pay it back somewhere. Whether you amortize it over 10 years, 20 years. But, you know, when people talk about, well, going with the clean diesel is, all that is debt. They use debt, which is an additive that I know we use with our own equipment with EB brands. It just cleans out some of the particles. Doesn't clean the exhaust fumes that are spewing off into the atmosphere. Electric buses don't have any fumes or any exhaust fumes that are dangerous to the environment. But again, Mr. Chair, what's the recommendation is to say,
Seeking council direction and proposed.
yeah, so what,
plans.
as chair,
Do we
what do you
need
wanna
to-
do?
Do we do a vote on this to see if it goes to council or?
Yeah, we'll have to go to
You have
council.
to rescind the resolutions first?
Well, it's your worship and through the chair, to the mayor's point, the staff have done their due
Yes.
diligence in giving you your choices now based on the information they have today. The information they had in November, October, whenever, there's new information now with respect to path forward that it would be irresponsible of staff not to give you that information when they know the information. So yes, maybe there should have been more thoughtful consideration of that November or December resolutions at the end of the day. Not going to argue that point. We're in the here and now where staff really need direction on your path forward. And so it's up to this committee as the recommending body to give its best possible recommendation to the council floor as to which of these paths we follow, because both of them will ultimately get you to electrification. Just one path is a little bit longer than the other because of what we know. And to the point of the report, the scenario that's being recommended by staff is also supported by the steering committee and the service provider.
Right.
Service provider needs a reliable fleet on the ground yesterday. And so they're also supportive of getting some new diesel buses and purchasing used buses and getting some electric minibuses and making a more gradual transition. That's what they're asking for as well. Did I get that right, Jessica? Okay.
Chair,
So we need a motion to go, to forward this to council,
I'll move it.
correct? Moved by Councillor Twill,
Need a second or I'll second, but I'm not voting for it.
Yeah.
Motion's on the floor, right?
motion's on the floor.
Yeah, okay. So let's just get
Councillor
back to
Twill
motion. So,
I'm gonna adjourn this meeting.
well, you get a motion on the floor.
I know, so what, okay, so
You're
first.
not gonna have quorum
second.
after you leave, Mr. Chair,
You
so,
can't, yeah. Just give us a few more minutes, right, Mr. Council?
because at the end of the day, you're
In all
moving it.
fairness to the chair, he's got another commitment. I mean, the man made it, he was supposed to be out of here at 1. You know, it's now 20 after 1, with all due respect to our chair. I think
Let's
we
finish
gotta
this
give,
motion,
what?
and then it's gonna be adjourned. The closed session will have to be put off to the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay,
Are you all right with that?
Let's go.
So, we have to change, do we have to make any amendments to our climate action plan? Can I ask, through the chair, to Katrina that's been working on it for the last couple of years?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, it's not completed yet, so it's still a working document, but at the same time, currently the recommendation that would relate to electrification is worded in such a way that it's to implement our 10-year transit plan. So if anything were to have to change, it would need to be that plan, not the climate action plan.
And Mr. Chair, look, when I arrived in 2018, electrification was an issue for me, transit was an issue for me. I was a strong believer of transit when I was councillor back in 2000 to 2006. It came about in 2005. I will not vote for this resolution, I'll vote against it, you'll have to break the tie. But to get to this path, to get to this point, took us almost 6 years. I don't know how many electric buses I was in. I know I was in one electric bus and it ran out of power. And so we had to wait and get someone to pick us up. But those are the trials and tribulations of electrification. Question. I called the question.
Question call.
oh, I know you did, very convenient of you. Well, very selective.
Did you have another comment?
Yeah, I sure do. I wanna come back to our CAO and the comments she made about our senior administration. I said back when we met in early January, Richard McEwen, our director, outlined the rationale why, and he said, you know, it was incumbent upon him to bring the information forward. And although we were all disappointed, I think he did his due diligence to bring the information forward. I thanked him for that. I mean, he said, what did you want me to do? Paraphrasing, tell you 3 years from now? So, you gotta give credit where credit's due. I mean, that wasn't easy for him to walk in here and tell us that, because we had an expectation. That wasn't easy. So first of all, I wanna recognize that fact. Secondly, nobody wants more, electrical buses than I do. I want the same thing, but, sometimes you're thrown curveballs and you gotta be able to adapt and adjust to these situations.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna get there. I think our staff are doing their level best. I mean, am I disappointed? Yeah, I'm sure there's gonna be residents disappointed, but I think if we take the time to explain what our challenges are, I mean, I think people will accept it. The residents just need accurate information, and when they get accurate information, they'll be fine with that. So I move that we have
That's
the.
part of the due process. Question callers.
Questions called?
All in
We're gonna
favor?
forward this forward. In favor,
Against.
opposed? I vote to move it on to council.
And you only have a vote unless it's a tie.
Motion.
Chair only gets to,
So he doesn't get to speak to it from the chair, does he?
Of course you do. Anyways, yeah, of course you do.
Your worship, can I get a clarification for the purpose of the record as to what is being voted against? Because we're sending 2 options back to council. So,
I want to leave the resolutions in place.
oh, I see,
Yeah,
okay, I
that's-
just wanted clarification.
Keep this going.
so
Took us
both two
6
options are still gonna go to council.
Took us 6 years to get here.
So, okay, so just for the record, Katrina, your closed session will go for the next meeting. Do we need to call a special meeting, or does
I
it
would-
just go to the next, Jessica?
I would call a special meeting.
One sooner, okay. And we'll go with 4:30 meeting time, so, and then we can,
For the closed session?
For the next meeting.
for the next meeting,
Yeah.
if it goes for longer,
No,
so.
that's fine, Chair.
Okay.
That's fine.
Alright,
Motion
motion
to
to adjourn, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.